to Ronan McCrea. He's Professor of Constitutional and European Law at University College London. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Professor McCrea. What's your feeling? Do you think this is the moment where Brexit becomes a reality or not?
Well, I think that the basic outline of the deal or potential deals has been clear from the start. Either the UK retains access to the single market, which means following EU rules, makes Brexit a bit pointless, or it has its own rules, leaves, and takes terrible economic disruption. Theresa May seems to be opting for something closer to the more kind of pointless Brexit, because she's terrified of economic disruption. And that's a choice. The other choice is really to lose access, and that's economically catastrophic. But there really isn't a third way, and that's been clear from the start. The EU is a system of common rules, and if you want to participate in the single market, you're going to have to follow those rules.
I'm interested you describe what's on the table as a pointless Brexit, because there are those who will say, look, when we voted to leave, what we voted to do was to leave the political institutions, and that's what we are doing.
Yeah, and that's a pointless Brexit. When you leave the political institutions, you lose your vote. So if you leave the political institutions but follow single market rules, all Brexit has done is vote to deprive the UK of its right to vote on the rules it follows. So that is pointless, but it's probably better than the economically catastrophic other option, which is losing access to the single market. The EU is quite a rigid institution. It can't give Britain a cherry-picked option where they get somehow to participate in the single market but have their own rules, because the single market is a package deal. Everybody in the EU hates bits of it, but they put up with it because the overall deal is worth it. If Britain was allowed to take the bits it likes, then other states would want that. And so the EU is never going to give that. Actually, a cherry-picking deal is much more of a threat to the EU than a no deal. So, always likely to face with this unpalatable choice.
But isn't it just about practical cooperation in the end? The European Union, some members of it have a commitment to a vision of a united Europe, which frankly the UK has never been part of, but the UK sees its European allies, including Ireland, as friends and allies and people it wants to trade with. So, why make a political point just making things difficult for everybody?
Not really a political point, because you're right that Britain isn't very keen on the United States of Europe model, but actually loads of countries aren't really keen on that. But the single market is something that's already established that Britain would then be leaving, and that's very different. Certainly the EU will be happy to cooperate, I imagine it will, in its own interests, but it won't be willing to unpick the single market, which is its biggest single achievement, and that's what Britain is facing. First, a cherry-pick deal is dangerous to the EU, so they're not going to give it. And second, the EU is less desperate for a deal than the UK is. The EU can afford a no deal, although places like Ireland would be affected. But Britain can't afford a no deal. And that really, I think that's, once the negotiations started, all the kind of, Britain will talk and the EU will talk, was replaced by actually negotiation basically on the EU's terms. Not because the EU is bad, but because when something 6 times the size of someone else go into discussions, then the bigger party really gets their way, and that's the nature of negotiations. And Brexit was always going to be like that.
Professor McCrea, thank you very much indeed for joining me now.